My name is Claire Bennett. I'm 32. And 11 months ago, my parents packed my bags the same night I lost my job, without saying a single word to me. By the time I came back from the parking lot, there were exactly 3 suitcases lined up by the front door. My winter coat was folded on top of one of them, even though it was late June. My laptop charger was missing. And my mother had already locked the kitchen cabinets. I counted 17 unread messages on my phone while I stood there. None of them were from them. Before I tell you what happened, please take a moment to like and subscribe. Drop your city and local time in the comments. I love knowing where you're watching from. Now let me take you back. I grew up in a house that always smelled like lemon cleaner and overcooked chicken. Not in a bad way. Just consistently, predictably. Every Sunday morning, my mother would open all the windows, even in winter, and wipe down every surface like she was preparing the house for inspection. My father would sit at the kitchen table with the newspaper folded into precise quarters, circling things with a pen he kept clipped to his shirt pocket. We lived in Columbus, Ohio, in a quiet neighborhood where nothing really changed. Same neighbors, same mailman, same dog barking 3 houses down at exactly 6:15. Every evening, I was the oldest. That mattered, more than anyone ever said out loud. I learned early that being the oldest meant being the one who noticed things first, the one who fixed things before they became problems, the one who stayed a little longer after dinner to help clean up while everyone else drifted off to their rooms. I don't remember anyone asking me to do that. I just remember the feeling that if I didn't, something would fall apart. When I was 12, my younger brother Evan forgot his science project the morning it was due. He was sitting on the stairs, tying his shoes too slowly, his face pale in that quiet way kids get when they know something is wrong, but don't want to say it. My mother was already late for work. My father had his keys in his hand. "Evan," she said sharply, "did you pack everything?" He nodded. He hadn't. I knew it before he said anything. I could see the cardboard volcano sitting on the dining room table. The baking soda still crusted around the edges from the night before. No one else noticed. Or maybe they did. But they didn't move, so I did. I grabbed the project, wrapped it in one of my sweatshirts so it wouldn't break, and ran it the entire 3 blocks to his school before the first bell rang. I remember standing outside the classroom door, breathing hard, holding that ridiculous volcano, like it was something fragile and important. Evan didn't say thank you. My mother didn't mention it that night, but something settled into place inside me. A quiet, understanding, this is your role. By the time I was 16, I had a mental list running in my head at all times. Pick up dry cleaning, remind Dad about his dentist appointment, transfer money for the electric bill if Mom forgets, help Evan study for his math test, call Grandma back. I started keeping it all in a notebook. At first, it was just scribbles. Then it became organized. Dates, times, notes. By senior year, I had entire pages filled with things that weren't mine, but somehow were. I don't think anyone ever saw that notebook. I kept it in the bottom drawer of my desk, under a stack of old magazines. It wasn't something I was proud of. It just existed. College was supposed to change things. I went to Ohio State, stayed close enough to drive home in under 30 minutes. I told myself it was practical, cheaper, easier. The truth was, I didn't know how to be far away. During my second semester, my father called me at 9:40 p.m. "Claire," he said, his voice tight, "your mother forgot to pay the gas bill again. They're threatening to shut it off tomorrow." I had a midterm the next morning. I remember looking at my laptop screen, the study guide open, the words blurring slightly as he spoke. "Can you handle it?" he asked. Not, "Do you have time?" Not, "Are you busy?" Just, "Can you handle it?" I opened my banking app, transferred $286.47. "It's done," I said. "Good," he replied, already sounding relieved. "I knew you'd take care of it." We hung up. I stared at the screen for a long time after that. Then I went back to studying. After graduation, I moved back home. Just temporarily, I told myself. I had a job lined up at a mid-sized marketing firm downtown. Entry-level but stable. The kind of job you could build something from my first paycheck was $2,140 after taxes. I remember the exact number because I sat in my car outside the bank and looked at it for a long time before depositing it. It felt like possibility, like something that was finally mine. That night, my mother mentioned the rising cost of groceries. My father mentioned property taxes. Evan needed help with his car insurance. No one asked directly. They didn't have to. By the end of the week, I had transferred out just over $900. I told myself it was temporary, just until things stabilized. The thing about patterns is, they don't announce themselves. They don't show up as something dramatic or obvious. They just repeat, quietly, consistently, until one day, you realize you've been living inside them for years. By the time I was 30, I had been working at the same company for almost 7 years. I had been promoted twice. I managed a small team. I knew the system, the clients, the rhythms of the work. I also paid for more things at home than I could easily list. Utilities, repairs, groceries, Evan's occasional emergencies. I didn't track it anymore. At some point, it stopped feeling like something I should measure. It just felt like what I did. The day I lost my job didn't feel real at first. It was a Tuesday at 10:15 a.m. There was a meeting invite on my calendar labeled, "Quick check-in." I didn't think anything of it. By 10:27, I was sitting across from HR, holding a folder that felt too thin to contain something that was apparently ending my entire routine. Due to restructuring, they said, position eliminated. Effective. Immediately, they gave me 6 weeks. Severance. A printed sheet with bullet points, a phone. Number for questions I didn't have the energy to ask. Walked out with a cardboard box that held exactly 11 items from my desk. A framed photo, a coffee mug, a notebook I hadn't written in for months. I sat in my car for almost an hour before driving home. I didn't cry. I just sat there, trying to understand what had shifted. When I pulled into the driveway, everything looked normal. My father's car was in its usual spot. The kitchen light was on. For a moment, I thought maybe I wouldn't say anything yet. Maybe I'd wait until dinner, until it felt like the right time. But when I opened the front door, I knew something was wrong. The house was too quiet, not peaceful, just still. And then I saw the suitcases, 3 of them, lined up neatly against the wall. My name written on a piece of masking tape on each handle. My mother was standing in the kitchen. She didn't look at me right away. She was wiping the counter, even though it was already clean. My father was sitting at the table, his hands folded, the newspaper untouched in front of him. No one spoke. Not when I stepped inside. Not when I set my keys down. Not even when I said, "What is this?" My mother's hand paused for a second, then she kept wiping. My father cleared his throat. "You should go," he said. That was it. No explanation. No discussion, just, "You should go." I remember looking at them, waiting for something else, a reason, conversation, anything. But there was nothing, just the sound of the clock on the wall, ticking, steady, unbothered. Didn't argue. I didn't ask questions. I picked up the smallest suitcase first. It was heavier than I expected. I carried it to my car, set it in the trunk, then came back for the other 2. No one followed me. No one helped. When I closed the front door for the last time, my mother still hadn't looked at me. I drove without a destination for almost 42 minutes, just turning at random lights, letting the roads decide for me. Eventually, I parked in the lot of a CVS that stayed open 24 hours. I turned off the engine, and I sat there. That's when I finally checked my phone. Messages, work, emails. 2 from a coworker asking if I was okay. 1 automated notification from my bank. I almost ignored it, but something made me open it. It was a document. PDF attached to an email from a law office I didn't recognize. Subject line, "Property transfer confirmation. Signature required." I stared at it for a long time before opening it. My name was at the top, my full name, Claire Bennett, and below it, An address I didn't recognize. A property listed at $310,000, a beach house. I didn't understand what I was looking at. Not yet, but I could feel something. Shifting, quietly, irreversibly, and that was the moment everything began to change. I didn't open the document right away. I just sat there in the parking lot, the glow from the CVS sign flickering faintly across my windshield, my phone resting in my hand like it belonged to someone else. The engine had already cooled. The air inside the car felt still, almost heavy, like it was waiting for me to decide something. But instead of opening it, I closed my eyes. Because the truth is, nothing about that night made sense unless you understood everything that came before it. And everything that came before it wasn't loud. It never is. When I think about my family now, I don't think about one big moment where everything went wrong. I think about systems, small, quiet systems that built themselves over time. My mother, Diane, believed in order above everything. Not just a clean house, but a controlled one. There was a right way to fold towels, a right way to stack dishes, a right way to speak at the dinner table. Even silence had rules. My father, Richard, was different. He wasn't strict. He was absent in a very specific way. Not physically. He was always there. But he moved through the house like a guest who didn't want to cause problems. If something needed to be handled, he would notice it. He just wouldn't be the one to do it. And then there was Evan. 3 years younger than me. Funny. Easygoing. The kind of person people describe as good with others. Which, in our house, translated to something else entirely. It meant he was rarely expected to carry anything. I don't think anyone ever sat down and decided how things would work. But by the time I was in my 20s, it had already been decided. If something needed to be remembered, I remembered it. If something needed to be fixed, I handled it. If something went wrong, I adjusted. Not because I was told to, but because no one else did. There's a moment I keep coming back to. I was 14. It was late October, cold enough that the windows had started to fog up in the mornings. I had a school presentation the next day, something I had been working on for weeks. A history project, printed slides, note cards, everything carefully organized. That night, around 9:30, my mother knocked on my door. "Claire," she said, already halfway down the hallway before I answered, "Your father forgot to pick up his prescription again." I remember looking at the clock. The pharmacy closed in 22 minutes. "I have to finish this," I said, holding up the stack of papers. She paused, just slightly, then she shrugged. "Well, he needs it tonight. Not can you go, not are you able to, just a statement. He needs it." So I went, I grabbed my coat, drove too fast, made it there with 6 minutes to spare. Stood in line behind 2 people arguing about insurance while I kept checking the time on my phone. When I got back, my father was already asleep in his chair. The TV was still on. My mother was in the kitchen rinsing dishes. "Did you get it?" she asked. I held up the bag. "Good," she said without looking at me. That was it. The next day, I got an A on my presentation. No one asked about it. That's how it worked. Not cruel. Not dramatic, just consistent. By the time I was in my late 20s, the system had evolved into something more structured. I had a Google Calendar that looked like a shared family command center, even though technically it was just mine. Blue for work, green for household bills, yellow for family, doctor's appointments, car maintenance, payment due dates, reminders to call people back. At one point, I counted. There were 214 entries in a single month that had nothing to do with me. I didn't even remember. Adding half of them, I also kept a spreadsheet. Didn't tell anyone about it. It started as a way to keep track of my own expenses. Rent contributions, student loans, groceries. But over time, it shifted. Rows started appearing that didn't belong to me. Electric bill. 14382 water, $67.10 even car repair, $520 property tax contribution. $200 told myself it was temporary, just until things evened out. But the spreadsheet kept growing, month after month, year after year. The strange thing is, I didn't feel angry. Not then. I felt useful, needed. There's a kind of quiet validation in being the person everyone relies on, even if no one says it out loud, even If no one thanks you, you can feel it in the way they don't. Worry in the way they assume things will be handled because you're there. But there was a moment, small one, so small that I almost didn't notice it when it happened. It was my 29th birthday. Had taken the day off work, not for anything big, just a day to myself. I had planned to go to a bookstore downtown, maybe get lunch somewhere quiet. I didn't tell anyone in advance. I wanted to see if they would remember, not in a dramatic way, just naturally. At 8:12 a.m., my phone buzzed, a calendar notification, electric bill due. At 9:03, another one. Call insurance. At 11:47, a message from my mother. Can you pick up milk on your way home? No happy birthday. No acknowledgement. I waited all day. I kept checking my phone without meaning to. At one point, I even opened our family group chat. The last message was from 3 days earlier. Something about Evan's car again. Around 6:30 p.m. I went home. The house looked exactly the same. The same lemon cleaner smell, the same quiet TV in the background. My father nodded when I walked, and my mother asked if I had gotten the milk when I wasn't home. I stood there for a second longer than usual, just waiting, but nothing came. That night, I added something new to my spreadsheet. Not a number, just a note. My 9th birthday. No acknowledgement. I don't know why I wrote it. Maybe I needed to see it somewhere outside of my own head. After that, I started noticing things differently. Not bigger things, just patterns. How my mother would call me 3 times in a row if I didn't answer, but wouldn't respond to a message I sent for hours. How my father would ask me to handle something before even considering doing it himself. How Evan would assume I'd cover things financially, without asking, without hesitation, tried to fix it, quietly, in ways that didn't feel like confrontation. I started saying small things. I can't this week. I have something else planned. You might need to handle that. At first, it didn't register. My mother would just pause, then repeat the request differently. My father would wait a few hours, then ask again. Evan would laugh it off. Come on, Claire. You're better at this stuff. So I tried harder. I sent longer messages, explained my workload, my schedule, my limits. One night, I even drafted a message. It took me almost 47 minutes to write. I didn't send it. It felt too big, too final. Instead, I kept adjusting, covering things when they became urgent, stepping in when something would fall apart. Because the truth was, things would fall apart, and I knew it. That was the part I couldn't ignore. If I stopped completely, there would be consequences. Bills unpaid, appointments missed, things unraveling, and I wasn't sure I could watch that happen even if it wasn't my responsibility. So I stayed in the system, even as I started to see it more clearly, even as something in me began to shift. The night before I lost my job, I updated my spreadsheet. Nothing unusual, a few entries, a few numbers, but at the bottom, I added something new, a question, not for anyone else, just for me. What happens if I stop? I stared at it for a long time, the cursor blinking at the end of the sentence. Waiting. I didn't have an answer yet. But for the first time, I wasn't sure I wanted to keep being the reason everything worked. The moment everything changes doesn't feel like a breaking point. It feels small, almost forgettable. It happens 2 nights after I leave. I'm sitting in my car again, parked outside a Walmart that's still open at 11:26 p.m. The parking lot is mostly empty, just a few scattered cars and a cart rolling slowly across the pavement somewhere in the distance, pushed by the wind. The inside lights are too bright, too steady. I haven't checked into a hotel. I haven't told anyone where I am. The 3 suitcases are still in the back seat. My phone is in my hand. Not because I'm using it, just holding it. I've already read the document, more than once. The address, the value, the quiet confirmation that something exists in my name that no one can take, adjust, or quietly redirect. A beach house, three $10,000 owned, not shared, not managed, not explained. I don't feel excited, I don't feel relieved. I just feel still. And then my phone rings, my mother. For a second, I watch it. The name on the screen. The familiar rhythm of something that used to decide how my next few minutes would go. I answer. "Claire," she says. Her voice exactly the same as it always is. Controlled, slightly tight, like she's already halfway through a thought I'm expected to finish for her. "The internet bill didn't go through. Did you forget to schedule it? There's no pause, no hesitation, no acknowledgement of anything that happened, not the job, not the suitcases, not the fact that I am not there. Just the bill." I don't respond right away. I can hear the TV in the background, a familiar sound, something low and constant. My father, probably in his usual chair. The same routine, continuing. "Claire?" she says again, slightly sharper this time. I look out through the windshield, at the empty parking spaces, at the cart still moving slowly across the asphalt, at nothing, really, and something in me shifts, not suddenly, not dramatically, just clearly, because for the first time, I notice the pattern while it's happening, not in reflection, right? There. It doesn't matter where I am. It doesn't matter what just happened to me. It doesn't matter that I no longer live in that house. The expectation is still there. I close my eyes for a second, and I let the thought finish itself, fully, without interrupting it. If I answer this the way I always have, nothing will change. Not for them. Not for me. The silence stretches just slightly, not uncomfortable, just present. If you've ever been the person everyone counts on but nobody checks on, I see you. Hit subscribe. This story is about to turn. When I open my eyes again, everything feels simpler, not easier, just clearer. You'll have to handle that, I say. My voice doesn't shake. It doesn't rise. It just exists. There's a pause on the other end. Longer than usual. "What do you mean?" she asks. I don't explain. I don't soften it. I don't fill the space the way I normally would. "I'm not handling it anymore," I say. Another pause. This one heavier. "Claire, don't do this right now," she says, quieter now, but still controlled. "We just need—" I end the call. Not angrily, not quickly, just deliberately. The screen goes dark, and for a second, I expect something. A rush, a reaction, guilt. But none of it comes. It's just quiet. My phone lights up again almost. Immediately. Another call, then another. Turn it face down on the seat beside me. And then slowly, I pick it back up, not to answer. To open the email, the one I've been avoiding. The document is still there. Unchanged. Waiting. At the bottom, there's a line. Simple, clear. Accept. Transfer and finalize ownership. I read it again, even though I already know what it says. Because this isn't just about a house. It's about something else. Something I've never had before. A boundary that doesn't move. I take a breath, not a deep one, just enough, and I press it. A new page. Open, signature required. I type my name. Slowly, each letter deliberate. Claire Bennett. For a second, my finger hovers over the screen. Not because I'm unsure, but because I understand exactly what it means. Not just gaining something. Letting something else go. Completely, I press. Submit. There's no sound, no dramatic confirmation. Just a small line of text. Transaction. Completed. I look at it for a few seconds, then I lock my phone. Outside, the cart has finally stopped moving, caught against the edge of the sidewalk. And for the first time, nothing is waiting for me to pick it up. The confirmation email comes through at 11:42 p.m. It's quiet, almost underwhelming. A single line at the top. Ownership transfer complete. Below it, a PDF attachment. Updated records. My name, now listed not as a beneficiary or a pending party, but as the sole owner. I don't celebrate. I don't even smile. I just sit there in the driver's seat, the engine still off, the soft hum of highway traffic in the distance, and I read every line again. Slowly, carefully. Like I'm trying to understand not just what it says, but what it changes. Because something has changed. Not around me, inside me. The next morning, I wake up in the car. My neck aches. There's condensation along the edges of the windows. My phone battery is at 9%. For a moment, I forget where I am. Then it comes back in pieces. The job, the suitcases, the call, the signature. I plug my phone into the car charger and open the email again. This time, I scroll further down. There's contact information for the law office, a name I recognize now after seeing it so many times. Daniel Hargrove, estate attorney. There's also a note I hadn't fully registered before. Property currently maintained under third-party management. Keys available upon request. Utilities active. I read that line 3 times. Utilities active. Someone has been taking care of it, without me even knowing it existed. At 9:17 a.m., I make the call. My voice sounds steady, even to me. Hi, this is Claire Bennett. I received a property transfer confirmation last night. I wanted to understand what happens next. There's a pause on the other end. Papers shifting, then a calm voice. Older. Measured. Ms. Bennett, he says. We've been expecting your call. He explains everything slowly. My aunt, my mother's older sister, passed away nearly 2 years ago. No children, no spouse, but she had assets, quiet ones, properties she never talked about. Investments she kept separate from the rest of the family. The beach house was one of them. She left specific instructions, he says. The property was to be transferred to you upon confirmation of independent residency. I frown slightly. Independent residency? Yes, he says gently. In simple terms, when you are no longer living under your parents' household. I don't respond right away. Because suddenly, something clicks. Not loudly. Just enough. She didn't trust them. He continues, carefully. Not with this asset. There's no judgment in his voice. Just fact. She believed you would need something that was entirely yours. No shared ownership. No oversight. I look out through the windshield. The sky is pale, cloudless, empty in a way that feels almost intentional. And they knew? I ask quietly. Another pause. Yes, he says. That's the only moment where something inside me tightens. Not anger, just recognition. They were informed at the time of her passing, he adds. But the terms were clear. The property could not be accessed or transferred through them, so they just... I stop, choosing the word carefully. Waited? I can't speak to their intentions. Replies, but I can. The call ends after 14 minutes. He emails me the key release form. A contact number. For the property manager. Directions. By 10:02 a.m., I filled out the form. By 10:11, I've sent it back. I don't call my parents. I don't text. I don't explain. Instead, I drive. The trip takes just over 11 hours. From Ohio down to Alabama. I stop twice. Once for gas. Once for coffee I barely drink. The rest of the time. It's just long stretches of highway. The kind where your thoughts start to settle into something quieter the longer you keep moving. I don't play music. I don't call anyone. I just drive. About halfway through, my phone starts lighting up. First my mother, then my father, then both. I don't answer. By the time I reach the state line, there are 23 missed calls and 1 voicemail. I listen to it once. My father's voice. Tight. Controlled in a way I recognize immediately. Claire, he says, we need to talk. Call us back. No mention of what. No explanation. I delete it. When I arrive, it's late afternoon. The air feels different. Warmer. Heavier. It carries salt. The house isn't what I expected. Not larger. Not grand, just quiet. White exterior. Slightly weathered wood steps. A small porch facing the water. There's a key waiting in a lockbox. Just like the email said, The code works on the first try. When I open the door, the air inside smells faintly of cedar and something clean. Not like home. Something else. Something untouched. I step inside slowly, set my bag down near the door. There's furniture already there, simple, neutral, a couch, a table, a bed visible down the hallway. Everything arranged, but not lived in. I walk to the window, and that's when I see it. The ocean, wide, endless, moving in a way that feels steady, not chaotic. I stand there for a long time, not thinking, just standing. Back in Ohio, something else is happening. I know that without needing to see it, because around 6:48 p.m., my phone lights up again. Not a call this time, a message. From my mother. Claire, we received a notice. What is this about a property transfer? I don't respond. Another message comes in 3 minutes later, this time from Evan. Wait, you own a house? Then my father, call me, now. I set the phone down on the table, face down, and for the first time, I don't feel the need to explain anything. Later that evening, I sit on the porch. The sky shifts slowly into deeper shades of orange, then blue. The sound of the water fills the space around me in a way that feels complete. Somewhere else, in a different house that still smells like lemon cleaner and routine, I imagine the scene unfolding, my mother standing in the kitchen, holding her phone too tightly, my father pacing slightly, reading the notice again and again, Evan asking questions no one can answer. What does this mean? He probably says, how did this happen? And then, eventually, the shift. Not toward me, toward each other. Because there's no one else left to carry it. You knew about this? Evan might ask. I told you the terms. My mother might respond. You said it didn't matter. My father might add. Voices rising. Not loudly, but enough. And then the silence that follows. Different from before. Heavier. Because this time, something is missing. Not money, not a task, something else. Back on the porch, I pull a light blanket around my shoulders. The air cools slightly as the sun disappears. My phone stays silent, and for the first time in a very long time, nothing is waiting for me to fix it. The first bill arrives 3 days later. Not to me, to them. I know because my mother sends a photo of it at 8:14 a.m., the timestamp sitting quietly in the corner of the screen like it always has. It's the electric bill, $173.26, the same one she called me about that night. Now marked, past due, in a thin red line that somehow feels louder than it should. There's no greeting in the message, just the image. I look at it while sitting at the small kitchen table in the beach house, a cup of coffee cooling slowly in my hands. The window is open, and I can hear the water again, steady, consistent, not asking anything from me. For a moment, my body reacts the way it always has. A quiet instinct. Fix it. Open the app. Transfer the money. End the problem before it grows. I don't move. Instead, I set the phone down beside the cup and take a sip of coffee that's already gone slightly bitter. Nothing happens. No follow-up message. No call. By the end of that day, there are 4 more texts. My father sends one at 2:03 p.m. Utilities are stacking up. We need to know what you're doing. Evan sends one at 5:41 p.m. Hey, can you just cover this month? I'll figure something out after. And then another from my mother. Later that night. This isn't how a family works. I read all of them. I don't respond. The next morning, something shifts. Not in me. In them. There are no messages that day, no calls, just silence. But silence doesn't mean nothing is happening. It just means it's happening. Somewhere else. By the end of the week, the consequences start to take shape, small at first. Then, harder to ignore. The lawn doesn't get cut. That's the first thing the neighbors notice. It had always been done every Saturday at 9 a.m., like clockwork. My father never touched it. He said his back couldn't handle it anymore. Evan always forgot, so I did it. Every week, for years. Now the grass grows uneven, patches higher than others, edges untrimmed. It doesn't seem like much, but in a neighborhood like ours, it stands out. Then the garbage bins, left out a day too long, then two, then they miss a pickup entirely. The small systems begin to fail, one by one. By the second week, my phone lights up again. This time it's not my parents, it's Mrs. Keller, our neighbor. "Hi, Claire," her message reads. "I hope you're all right. I notice things seem a bit off at the house. Just wanted to check in." I stare at the message longer than I expect to, because there's something in it I haven't felt in a while. Concern, not expectation. I type a response. Simple. "I'm okay. Thank you for asking," she replies 12 minutes later. "That's good to hear. Just take care of yourself, okay?" I don't realize how much I needed to read that until after I've already put the phone down. Back in Ohio, things continue to shift. The second electric notice arrives, then a late fee, then a warning. Evan tries to cover it. I know because he sends a message. Short, rushed, used my credit card. It's fine, but it's not fine. His card was already near its limit. I remember because I helped him calculate it just a few months ago. My father starts making calls. I don't hear them, but I can imagine them, his voice tight, controlled, trying to keep things sounding manageable. My mother, I think, begins to feel something she hasn't felt in a long time. Not panic, but uncertainty. Because the system isn't correcting itself. By the third week, something else happens, something different. I receive a message from a number I don't recognize. "Hi, Claire. It's Daniel, my brother. We haven't spoken in almost 2 years. Not because of a fight, just distance." He moved out early, created his own life, didn't stay tied into the same patterns. I heard what happened. His message continues. "I'm sorry. I read it twice, then a third time. There's no request attached, no follow-up question, no expectation, just those 2 words I sit with, that for a while, longer than I did with any of the others." Then I reply, "Thank you." He responds later that night. I should have said something a long time ago. I don't ask what he means. I already know. Out here, my life starts to settle into something quieter. I wake up early, not because I have to, but because the light comes in through the windows slowly, gently, and it feels different from the harsh alarm tones I used to rely on. I make coffee, sit on the porch, watch the water. I find a small grocery store about 12 minutes away. The cashier remembers my name after the third visit, not because I told her, because she asked. Start keeping a calendar again. But it looks different now. There are only 9 entries in the first full week, all of them mine. Walk on the beach. Call Daniel, buy groceries, read. No reminders for bills that aren't mine. No appointments for people who never showed up for me. Just space. Sometimes I still reach for my phone out of habit, thinking there's something I've forgotten, something I need to fix. But there isn't. And slowly, that feeling fades. A few days later, another message comes through. My mother. "We're handling things." I read it. There's something in the wording that feels different, less certain, less controlled. I don't respond, because for the first time, I understand something clearly. They're not asking anymore. They're figuring it out. And I'm not the one doing it for them. That night, I update my calendar again, add one more entry. Dinner, 7 p.m. Just for me, I don't rush it. I take my time cooking. The kitchen smells like garlic and something warm. Something simple. When I sit down to eat, it's quiet, but not empty. And for the first time in a long time, that quiet feels like mine. The first morning that feels like mine starts with the sound of something simple. A kettle, not an alarm. Not a phone vibrating against a nightstand. Just water beginning to hum softly as it heats. The faint click of the stove, the quiet rhythm of something that doesn't demand anything from me. It's 6:42 a.m. The light outside is still soft, barely stretching across the surface of the water. There's a thin layer of mist just above the shoreline, moving slowly, like it has nowhere urgent to be. I stand in the kitchen barefoot, the wood floor cool under my feet, and for a moment, I don't do anything. I just stand there and listen. There's something about quiet that used to make me uneasy, like I had forgotten something, missed something, like there was always a task, waiting just outside of my awareness, ready to surface the moment I let my guard down. That feeling doesn't come anymore. I pour the hot water into a chipped ceramic mug I found in one of the cabinets a few days ago. It's slightly uneven, like it was handmade. The glaze a soft off-white with a thin crack running along the side that doesn't quite reach the bottom. I run my thumb over it absent-mindedly as I carry it to the porch. The air smells like salt and something faintly sweet I haven't been able to place yet. Maybe it's the wood. Maybe it's just here. I sit down in the same chair I've been using every morning. It creaks slightly under my weight. Not broken. Just used. The ocean is calmer today, the waves smaller, quieter, like they've settled into something steady overnight. I watch them for a while without thinking. And then, slowly, I realize something. I'm not waiting for anything. Not a message, not a call, not a problem to appear. Just this. My phone rests on the small table beside me. Face up this time. Not out of habit. Just because I don't feel the need to hide from it anymore. There's one notification. A message from my father. I look at the name for a few seconds before opening it. Not because I'm nervous. Just because I want to be sure I'm ready to read it without slipping back into something I've already left behind. The message is shorter than I expect. Claire, we're managing. I hope you're okay. That's it. No instructions. No requests. No assumptions. I read it again. Then I set the phone down. I don't respond right away, not because I'm trying to make a point, just because I don't need to. Later that afternoon, I take a walk along the shoreline. The sand is warm but not too hot. Soft under my feet in a way that makes each step feel slower, more deliberate. There are a few people scattered in the distance. A couple walking their dog. Someone sitting with a book. No one paying attention to me. I realize I like that. About halfway down the beach, there's a small wooden bench set back near the dunes. It's slightly weathered, the paint faded in places where the sun has hit it the hardest. I sit down, brush a bit of sand off the surface with my hand. This place doesn't feel like an escape. Not anymore. It feels like something else, a beginning, maybe, but quieter than that. More like a space that was waiting. I think about my family, not in the same way I used to. Not as a list of things to manage or problems to solve. Just as people. My mother, still trying to keep everything controlled, but now having to face things she can't organize into neat routines. My father, learning, slowly, awkwardly, how to take action instead of observing from the edges. Evan, probably realizing for the first time how much had been handled for him, without him ever noticing. And Daniel, I still think about his message sometimes, the way it didn't ask for anything, the way it just acknowledged. We've spoken a few times since then. Short calls. Nothing heavy, but real. Last night, he said something that stayed with me. I always wondered how you kept everything together, he told me. I just didn't realize it was costing you that much. I didn't answer right away, because I had never really thought about it like that before. Cost, not just money, but time, energy, space, things. I didn't even realize I was giving away. As the sun starts to lower, the light shifts again. Everything softens. The edges of things blur slightly. I head back to the house slowly, not rushing, not checking the time. When I get inside, the air feels different than it did that first day. less like a place. I was stepping into more like somewhere I belong. I make dinner again, something simple. Pasta garlic olive. Oil, the smell fills the space quickly, warm, familiar. Plate it. Sit down at the small table, the same one, from a few nights ago, and again. It's quiet, but it doesn't feel empty. After I finish eating, I wash the dishes slowly, dry them, put them away. There's no rush, no list waiting for me after. Just the evening. I step outside one more time before it gets too dark. The sky is deep blue now, the first stars just beginning to appear. I sit on the porch, wrap the same blanket around my shoulders. And for a moment, I think about going back, not to live, not to fix anything, just to see them. The thought doesn't feel heavy. It doesn't feel urgent. It just exists, a possibility, not a responsibility. Maybe one day, maybe not. I don't need to decide that right now. Because for the first time, my life isn't built around what happens next for someone else. It's just mine. I think about the night everything changed. The suitcases, the silence, the way I stood there waiting for something that never came. And I realize now, that moment didn't take something from me. It gave me something, a line, clear, unmistakable. And once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. I didn't leave to punish them. I didn't leave to prove anything. I left because for the first time, I understood that if I stayed, I would disappear inside everything I kept holding, together. Now I know something I didn't know before. I exist outside of what I do for other people, and that's enough. That's more than enough. If this story stayed with you, I'd love to know. Drop a comment. Tell me, are you the one who holds everything together in your family? Or did this make you realize someone in your life might be? Subscribe so you don't miss the next one.